Hello and welcome to Behind the Screen on this Thursday morning. I am JM, and this is just a show where we sit around, we chat, we talk about gaming, we talk about game design, we talk about gaming news, that sort of thing. We are going to be looking at today. Hey Ben, thanks for subscribing. That's awesome. Uh, we're going to be talking today about a poll that is up on the iconic Discord channel, a Patreon only Discord channel that we have, where we're discussing the next stream we're going to launch. We're looking at launching a new stream next month. It's always good to see you, my friend. Um, we're going to be doing another weekly game stream on Twitch, exporting it out to YouTube. And right now there's a poll going on, and we've narrowed it down to 3 games. First of all, to everyone who voted for Jackals, I really appreciate that, and I would love to do a Jackals game. That could still be on the table, who knows? But we're doing several polling rounds, if you will, to kind of figure out what we want to do. So I figured today I would just talk about the different games we're looking at, talk about what my campaign ideas would be, and answer any questions in the chat that you may have about the new game. It's probably going to go live on Mondays or Thursdays. We haven't quite nailed that down yet. And we're looking at 3 games right now. The first game is the ever popular Warhammer Fantasy 4th Edition. Now, I mean, you can go back and watch my review of Warhammer Fantasy and what I love about it, but it's a D100 game, something I really enjoy. Grounded in sort of a whimsical, historical fantasy version of the Holy Roman Empire. Another thing I love about it. And adventure-wise, I was thinking a lot of people had started off with the Enemy Within campaign. And for what I've been able to see, nobody's still doing the Enemy Within campaign, probably due to starting it and not having a lot of the books released at the time, losing interest, that sort of thing. So I think what I would probably do with this is it would lean more into the grand campaign style. I would not use the Enemy Within campaign, but probably run some of the smaller adventures, kind of stringing them together, set it in a village in the Empire, maybe near Altdorf, and just see where the campaign goes. Kind of focus on the village, the villagers, that sort of thing. Maybe weave in a little bit of the Enemy Within, or at least have it going on off screen. I really enjoy that campaign, and there's something wonderful and whimsical to the Warhammer fantasy world. There's something deeply interesting about the Chaos Gods, almost Cthulhian in the fact that the idea is that the gods will eventually win. But you are still the hero engaged in the Chaos Comp, right? You go out and you fight and you attack chaos and drive it back so that your people, your villages, your future can continue. I liken Cthulhu and Warhammer I put them in the same category in the fact that you are not, as Oz and I were talking about yesterday, it's sort of the not today campaign. Maybe chaos will win, but the goal of the heroes is to scream in the face of chaos, not today. And if we tie that in with the grand campaign ideas, the goal of not today is so that your children can say, not today. And their children can say, not today. And perhaps you can kick the can down the road long enough to come up with either a permanent solution or at least rest easy in your grave. So I'd want to focus on all of the cool things about Warhammer Fantasy. The whimsical nature. So a lot of dark scenes counterposed with humor, right? It's sort of how humanity actually deals with these things. I love Call of Cthulhu, but the pressure to be on the whole time is a little intimidating, right? We do crack, right? Gallows humor is a thing. If you read one of my favorite series, which we're going to be talking about, I think in 2 weeks, I know I keep saying, hey, we're going to have this literary discussion, but it keeps getting kicked down the road. So yeah, where was I going with this? Malazan Books of the Fallen. They're very funny because the soldiers who look at death every day have this innate response to sort of spit in the teeth of Hood, the god of death, and laugh. Rook, good to see you. Man, thank you as always, man. That's amazing. Let's see here. Oz asks a question on a complete aside. Did they bring back squats to 40k? The answer is surprisingly yes. Our good friend Chris, you know Chris Oz, sent it to me, and I was like, Chris, it's April 1st, man. Don't trust anything that you see on April 1st. And it turns out the April Fool's joke was actually announcing squats on April 1st because, yes, they are coming back. The new squat minis have a very 30k feel to them. They've got a little bit cleaner lines. They're not as gothic. They actually remind me some of the original Tau sculpts, which is really kind of interesting and refreshing. I think they've revealed only a couple of minis at this point, but they have a little bit more clean lines. They have a little bit more smoothness to them. I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of 40k, I'm not pitching a 40k game, but Padre has completely sold me on this game. I got my Fury of the Deep starter box in. Zane and I are going to start assembling. I may show off some of the painted minis on stream when we get there. But he also got me to look at the Soulbound role-playing game. Now, if I like Warhammer because it is somewhat realistically grounded, Age of Sigmar, I was explaining it to Ben, that it's like someone took the old world and those concepts and a bit of Planescape and those concepts and ground it together in a mortar with a mortar and pestle and added a healthy dose of, let's call it, energy enhancements, snorted the whole thing and created Age of Sigmar. And I mean that in the best possible way. It is intense. It is crazy. They took some of the things that I really liked about the old world and dialed them up to 14. Yeah, Padre, right, that's gallows humor is real. So one of the biggest criticisms that Erickson has gotten over the years is that he has these uneducated, farmers, stonemasons, fishers who get caught up into the military life of the Malazan Empire, and they're making these deep philosophical connections. They're making these very witty jokes, and his response was, only when you deal with death every day do you actually start to ask the hard questions about life. And he related it to a lot of the digs that he was on and the protection that they had there. And I love that idea that when your business is death, you dwell on what is the meaning of life. And and so gallows humor is a part of that. It is a stress relief valve for us. It is that point when the tension is too much that you're either going to snap or you need to release it. And gallows humor fits that mold. So Padre, good to see you. Thank you for introducing me, having me take another look at Age of Sigmar and Soulbound. So Age of Sigmar does it's a die pool system. Sort of reminiscent of the Wrath and Glory system, but kind of doing its own thing. And I really like the way they code the test difficulty. For those of you who played Old World of Darkness, you may be familiar with the fact that you would have what number on the die counts as success and how many successes do you need. There were two dials for the GM to play with, right? The first one represents kind of the initial difficulty, and then sort of like a threshold of success. Age of Sigmar does the same thing. They just code any die roll. Like if it was 4:2, you need 4s or higher on your d6s, and you need 2 successes. So it works out really well. It's a really simple way of explaining to the player how difficult a challenge is and what they can expect from it. Now it gets a little fiddly. Every skill has 2 parts to it. So you have your focus, which adds to your die pool. Or no, you have your training, which adds to your die pool, and your focus, which allows you to manipulate the numbers on the die up. But with Age of Sigmar Soulbound, you're looking at creatures. You can play as a Fire Slayer, which are dwarves who find Urgold, which is essentially the body of their dead god that has been mixed with that of a dragon and a volcano, and they hammer these things into runes that they hammer into their body that gives them powers. You can play the dwarves that use Aether Gold, which they can fly around on balloon jetpacks and have very high technology. The Stormcast are like the heroes of old, kind of their souls combined and reforged and put into, it might be Sigmarium, almost a metallic, body. And every time they die, they go back to the realm of Sigmar and eventually are reforged. But every time they die, they lose a little bit more of the humanity that they were part of. You have your witch elves, you have your wood elves, you have your high elves, you have your deep sea crazy Cthulhian elves. The new books are introducing, champions of death, so you can play as ghouls, you can play as vampires, champions of disorder, so you can play as orcs. There's this, when I was at Chaosium Con, there was this really great, we got to meet a fan of the show. Hopefully you'll see this one, Robert. And he showed me the image of the orc, this great image of an orc archetype. It was like an orc sniper, but he had a crossbow the size of his body. Padre, do you know if they have they might have a free guild one in Champions of Order. I will do some research. I'm pretty sure I saw something to do with the free guilds in one of the new books. Oh, excuse me. So if I did something like this would play into that episodic idea that I had, where essentially the players would have a series of seemingly unconnected adventures resolved in 2 or 3 sessions, but each one would build towards a revelation of what is going on. We'd probably play on the realm of fire that's really well defined, lots of good touchstones to really kind of see what's going on. I also like the idea of the Soulbound. If you're not playing a Stormcast Eternal, all of your players are bound together by this magical rite that gives you power. It allows you to establish group goals as the set going forward. And I was very surprised. I don't know that I can say that any more genuinely. Soulbound has a robust downtime action system, which is something that I love. I was not expecting to find that in this game. I was not expecting to see, hey, what do we do between adventures? How do we get better at and invest in the world around us? The technology book has amazing crafting rules. So if you want to play a dwarf and build a bunch of things, if you want to play an alchemist, they just have a ton of great crafting rules and downtime actions. Simply stunning. So yeah, Padre, maybe I was mistaken. I might have been reading through. Excuse me. I'm also looking at this, and I've been looking at a lot of the Age of Sigmar minis, so I may just be putting together the Free Cities Guilds minis that I saw. And then last but not least, I'm looking at Runequest. If you have followed the Iconic channel for any length of time, you know how I feel about Glorantha. It is sort of the urtext for me on games and game design. I was lucky enough to pick up that handful of Greg Stafford notes and books. I run the show Exploring Glorantha with my good friend Evan. We're going to talk about ducks on Saturday, so if you are at all interested, join us at 10 Central as we do our live show for Exploring Glorantha. We're going to be talking about the ducks, why they're important, and why they're in Glorantha. This also plays into the Grand Campaign style of play. You're going to be playing as members of a Tula, of a village, and your character kind of sits. It's sort of the D&D world inverted, right? In the D&D world, you are a itinerant. Most of the time, you're a itinerant wanderer whose past doesn't really matter. You might have a background, but right, it's really more about what's going forward. What's the story that you're in? And as your player kind of gains levels, they become more important locally, they become more important regionally, they become more important world and plane-wise. In this, the most important thing in the game is your tribe, then your clan, then your family, and then your hero. So when your hero goes out and does things, he or she are doing that specifically to support the community. And one of the things I love about RuneQuest is it's easy to die. Maybe that's not, let me rephrase that. It's easy to die in RuneQuest, and one of the things I love about it is I try to stress this to my players. Hey, you're going to go through characters in this game, but your legacy is the legacy of the Tula. So as long as the Tula is continuing, your game is progressing. And just one of the best campaigns of my life was a RuneQuest Glorantha game that I was able to run for some friends at back when I was up in Colorado. Just got a bunch of new RuneQuest books in, picked up from Drive-Thru RPG. I picked up Martin's Men of the West, which is the armies of the Western lands, and then the Godskin and Mad Prax, which is the 4th volume of Sandheart. So if you're a member of the Iconic Patronage, you can jump on the Discord, go to the Announcements tab, and vote in the poll. These are the 3 games we're looking at. I think any one of these would be just a wonderful game to run, and I would be very excited to see how these games progress. Right now, the top 2 games on the table are RuneQuest and Warhammer, about neck and neck, but we're gonna do a couple more polls for the patrons to kind of see what it is they like and what it is they want to see. So, Padre, you didn't see it in Champions of Order. All right, hold on. Let me just... Soulbound RPG. Free cities. I just read through a ton of them, and I could have sworn that... give me one quick second. Sorry. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think there is one right now. But we do see, like, I think the Sauruses are going to be in one. The Seraphon. I really like the Sylvaneth. They seem really interesting to kind of dig in and play with. So I'm hoping to recruit patrons for this game. I'm also hoping to bring back some of our fan favorites from, say, the Torg and the Fading Suns game. I've reached out to Lily. I've reached out to Becca. Reached out to Mark, other members of Iconic, and hopefully this game will launch in March. We've got some changes and some shakeups going up, kind of going forward, and just if you're a member of the patronage, know that you get to vote and have a say in a lot of the things that we're doing. I'm also starting to put together some new Jackals material that will be going out on Drive-Thru RPG, so I'll try and keep people updated. Some of the monsters we've been designing here on chat. Ooh, Bunnies and Burrows was one of my very first role-playing games that I played in. I had a drunken master of Bun Fu. Not sure why I'm sharing this. The other one we could do, Oz, is Toon, right? I have all of my Toon books. If anyone remembers that game, you actually got to play as cartoon characters. You could not die if your character hit 0 wounds or whatever what that was. You had to go sit out, you had to go leave the room for 5 minutes, and then your character would reconstitute themselves, put their thumb in their mouth and reinflate themselves. It also had the weirdest game mechanic, and I loved it. So first of all, chutzpah was one of the stats, which just represented how much personality and force of personality your character had. And then they had this really interesting rule about game physics. For a game about cartoons, it simulated the world very well. If you tried to do something that violated the laws of physics, and, like, I don't know, running into a tunnel that was painted on the wall, or running off the edge of the cliff and keep going, that sort of thing, defy gravity, you had to make an intelligence check. And if you failed, you were too stupid to realize that physics didn't work this way, and you could do what you attempted. So it's sort of why does the Roadrunner get to do these things, but Wile E. Coyote can't. And it's because Wile E. Coyote is smart enough to know how the world should work. So things like gravity and two objects occupying the same space at the same time affect him when they don't affect the Roadrunner. Toon and Nominee, I think Toon and Nominee and Cults of Terror were three very formative games for me when it came to game and setting design. If you're not familiar with Nominee, it was a French game that Steve Jackson put out. I think, at the time in junior high and high school, I had GURPS and I had, the Steve Jackson games catalogs coming in. So I knew about Toon, I knew about Nominee, I knew about Ogre, these things. And so I got the Nominee book, and I still have my Nominee collection. It was this French game that they brought over where you got to play angels or demons or mortals kind of caught between heaven and hell. And it was the first time I remember reading the mechanics of a game and going, wow, the mechanics can reinforce the setting conceits. So in this game, you rolled 3d6. If you've played Age, it works a little like Age. You rolled 3d6, 2 of one color, 1 of another kind. So the 2d6 gets added to your skills, and that tells you, hey, were you successful or not? And the single d6 told you how successful you were, 1 being the worst, 6 being essentially like a critical success. Except if you rolled triple ones and you were allied with heaven, it's the best roll you could get. If you were aligned with hell, it's the worst roll you could get. So the Trinity is really good for heaven and really bad for hell. If you rolled triple sixes, really good if you were allied with hell, really bad if you were aligned with heaven. So, not statistically, base mechanically, triple sixes would be the best you could roll, right? You would get a 12 added to your skill versus the target number with a critical success. But also, it reinforces the idea that, right, in our weakness, he is strong. So if you're on the side of heaven, 3 ones, which is the worst roll in the game, but also represents the Trinity, becomes the best roll for those allied with heaven. So it was just a really, it was mind-blowing for me back in the day. Little divergence there, but really solid game design. Also, it introduced me to the works of S. John Ross, who I had the opportunity to get to know while he lived in Colorado a bit. The guy did Rhesus, the 2-page role-playing game. He did... I forget the name of his world that he did that's also just wonderful. Rhesus is great. It's the stick figure role-playing game, but it can be used for... It's a very rules-like game that you can use just for about anything. So, well, that brings us about to the end of our behind-the-screen session tonight. So again, if you have interest in any of these 3 games, please let me know. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments. Let me know on the Discord channel. I'm probably going to put a poll up here soon about kind of what people might want to see for Jackals next. I've got some monster ideas. I've got some magic ideas. I've got some new culture ideas. I've got some adventure ideas. I'm going to let the patrons kind of think about that and chat about that. And then again, who knows what game we're going to run. I think that, like I said, the top 2 votes are for Runequest and Warhammer Fantasy. But if you really like Age of Sigmar, now is the time to try and get a vote in. We're going to run the game for at least a year. If you know anything about my campaigns, they tend to run multiple years. You get to jump in and invest at something from the ground up. We're talking with Bob about doing some art for the show and the channel that will be available on our Redbubble. So stickers and notebooks and t-shirts. If you did not know that we had a Redbubble, please go check it out. You can find us there at Iconic Production. And, Padre, I appreciate that. I really do. Hopefully, maybe we can get you in as a guest star one week or for a short arc. Also, we just started up our affiliate link, so anytime I review a product, it's obviously I'm not getting copies of the product. It's things that I love. We'll have the affiliate links to DriveThruRPG and Amazon if they're available. If you like what we're talking about and what you've seen, please consider supporting the show, following the links, jumping on Patreon, or following us on Twitch here or over at YouTube. Again, if you leave a comment, I'm going to reply to it. I appreciate interacting with everyone. And on the new show, we're going to really try and push the envelope of the chat interaction. I do that a lot with the Torg game, and I'm looking for new ways. All of these games have very interesting ways that I could tie to the chat interaction, whether it's meta currency or um, with RuneQuest, I'm looking at like possibly rune points or magic points kind of being something that we can interact with the chat on, or even spirits of reprisal, get players to or get the chat to kind of give me ideas for the spirits that the group will encounter. So I'll be back on Tuesday. We're going to get back into the design of Ekiazaru. I apologize. It has been a crazy set of weeks. I have not everything that I thought was going to happen. It's just kept getting kicked down the road. So there will also be Torg on Tuesday, I believe. I'll make the announcement on the Ulysses International channel. Let Phantom know, and we'll go from there. But thank you to everyone who has shown up. Thank you to Oz for chatting, to Padre as always, to Rook, who is a huge supporter of the show. Thank you, my friend. Thank you to all of you. Looking forward to chatting with all of you on Tuesday. Really looking forward to starting this new game. If you like what we do, again, please consider following, subscribing, telling friends about it so that we can draw more people into the channel. So until next time, I am JM. Have a great weekend. Tune in on Sunday or Saturday for Exploring Glorantha at 10 a.m. Central, and the Iconic Podcast as we talk about Trail of Cthulhu on at 8 o'clock Central on this Twitch channel. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I will see you all later. See you on Tuesday. Have a good one.